Greetings, Augies Worldwide. Hello, how are you? Good to see you. I found the control that makes this screen a little bit more warmer. I think it may have overdone it. I'll have to figure out. I need to get a consistent amount of light in here. Welcome to everybody to Augies Worldwide. We've got people from all over, and from Iraq, from Russia, Germany, all over the place. I note that one crazy Nordlander is going to attempt the extra next Saturday in Huron, South Dakota. Well, good luck to you. I hope you do well. And I hope all of you who are doing your studying are doing well with that. I just released the new general class thumb drive. So now I have thumb drives with all the videos for all the classes. There's one for tech, it's $29.99. There's one for general at $39.99, one for extra at $49.99. They are actually 16 gigabyte, 32 gigabyte, and 64 gigabyte thumb drives. As the lessons go up, they get longer and a little bit more complicated, so have to differentiate a bit on the price there. And we've been sending out the generals like crazy, so that's great. The more the merrier. If I run out of thumb drives to write, I'll just run down to the Office Depot in Montrose and pick up some more and bring them home. You get a brand new, never used thumb drive for these. So I'm a little hyper about security, so I'm hoping that by getting brand new ones, be less likely to have a problem. Somebody says that the audio is scratching just a bit. I made some changes internally. I was trying to get FT8 to work a little bit better with my 7300 last night, and noticed that I somehow had managed to change all of my audio settings. Thank you, Mark Piran, for pointing out that Super Chat is live. Appreciate it very much. Microphone a little high. I can pull it down a little bit here. There. That's a little bit down. It's not going into the red, so hopefully it's okay. Microphone a little high. Let's see if it's still hot. Okay, I'll bring it down to here. You know what I can do? I can turn it down on the microphone itself. There, it's down a little bit on the mic itself. Hopefully that helps. Okay, and if the audio is clipping, I can still cut it down. There are, in Windows 10, a bunch of internal settings that are very hard to get to. And I tried to get to one to get my FT8 to improve, and maybe I did it a little bit. It says better. I'll bring it down a little bit there. See how that is there. Okay, so welcome everybody. The only announcement I had to do with the new video general video sticks, and those are available for anybody who wants them. Now I point out that I'm going to stop selling the extra somewhere in the April time frame. Because there's a new book coming out with new questions, and I understand the changes are significant. So I'll have to wait till I get the new manual. I hope to get it at Dayton, and then I can see what needs to be changed, and then we'll go through the project of getting all of the extra videos updated. Still hot, getting better, good, great now. Okay, that's better. All right. Our first query comes from Robert Black, KN7GNH. He's questioning, let me summarize his question. It has to do with losses in antenna tuners. And yes, every antenna tuner has a certain amount of loss. If the tuner is not tuning very much, meaning it's like a 1.2 to 1 that you're tuning down to 1 to 1, your losses aren't so great. As you tune very high SWRs, you can start getting greater losses. here's how it works. I'm going to go to, oh, first of all, let me go to the overhead here, the main overhead. These are the people whose questions got lost. They used the online system of, let's see, it's ke0og.net/ask-dave. And the problem is that doesn't always work. And we had these 6 people who submitted questions via that method, and the questions got all garbled and wrong. So we didn't get the right question. So if your name is on this list, Robert Bumke, KJ7, and then my assistant put 4 letters there. I don't know which are right. Zach, Robert, Perry, KD7EPZ, Marin, HB3YDM, Ian, Barry, Egerton, VK2IBE, and Robert Wheelock. Your questions were lost. Please resubmit them. Let me give you the email address to use for resubmitting. This works better. The question, it should be ham radio answers. Note that that's plural and all one word at gmail.com. That avoids the problem that we were having with that page, and I don't know what to do about that page. I need to upgrade my WordPress theme to something more recent than 2010, which it's on now. Okay, now I was going to talk about the tuner. Okay, your classic tuner circuit is a capacitor, another capacitor, and an inductor. And all these are adjustable. Okay, and so here's your radio, and this is 50 ohms here. And this right here, this impedance is the complex conjugate impedance to match to the feed line, so that the feed line will then properly match the antenna. Now the problem is these are reactive elements, and you get reactive currents between these elements that can be very high, many amps, sometimes tens of amps, that go back and forth at radio frequencies in here. And so you get a reflected wave. The reflected wave is captured by this part and stored and released in sync with the outgoing wave. Okay, now it's that capture and store process that involves high currents. Now, capacitors and inductors do not dissipate energy intrinsically, but there's copper in them, and the so-called copper losses are those circulating currents. They go through the copper if they're really high and the antenna tuner doesn't have nice thick wire. You can start dissipating that as heat in the copper because of the ohmic losses, and that is where the loss comes from in an antenna tuner. Note that it is not a fixed amount. It depends on the specifics of the situation. Best, of course, to have an antenna that doesn't take much to tune. But that's where that comes from. Okay. Oh, let's see. Let's see. Show. Please submit your questions over email to hamradioanswers@gmail.com. Yes, thank you. That is exactly what you need to do. And hello, Toledo. New extra pool is released. Yes, it is released. And I have not compared it with the old pool. What is more important to me is, since my videos follow the ARRL training material, is for me to understand what that training material is going to be. If I had an in at the ARRL, I'd find that out early, so I'd have those videos ready to go on July 1st. This is forwarded to me from a patron at patreon.com, a patron by the name of Old Lion. He has a question regarding extra class license test question E1D09. The ARRL book contradicts the test question. Doesn't quite contradict it, it just doesn't give the answer in the same way. And I think the thing to answer here is, and this is true for a bunch of questions, the answer that is most nearly correct. Okay, most nearly correct. He says none of the answers include all the bands that you can do satellite operations on. That is true, but pick the answer that is closest to the correct. In this case, page 314 in the book says segments of 2 meter, 70 centimeter, 23 centimeter, 13 centimeter, and some microwave bands are also available for space operations. And the question is, which UHF amateur bands or frequencies available for space stations? And the answer is 70 centimeters and 13 centimeters. It leaves out some bands, but those two do have, and of the questions, those are the only two that have the correct answer. So, yeah, on the test questions, go with the most correct answer. Dennis Tuchalski, N9WDQ, says he watched my video evaluating the MFJ 2100 from Quartzsite. This is the octopus antenna. And he was curious about the mast that I used on it. It was a most curious mast. It's made of 4-foot lengths of aluminum rod painted olive drab, and they fit into each other very nicely. And I have 5 pieces, and it forms a 20-foot vertical. And then there is a piece in between that goes into the top of that thing, the 5 elements at 4 feet each, and has a thin enough top that it can be used that way. Another thing that you can do is take 2 pieces of chain link fence top rail, one into the other, put it upright, but then you are going to need an adapter, a thinner pole, because that is too thick to fit into the hole for the mast on the octopus. So what you can do is go down to Home Depot and get a thinner aluminum pole about 1.5 feet long, put it up into the antenna hub, okay, and then use a few hose clamps to clamp it sturdily to the mast. And that'll get you up there, and fairly cheaply too. So that's what I'd suggest doing. If you can find those little 4-foot sections of mast at a surplus store, those are very handy. I was given those at Quartz Fest so that I could get that antenna up for review. Very, very nice people did it. I had their name written down, and I have given them credit in other videos. Let's see. When I use my tuner MFJ, it will show microhenry and picofarad used to tune it. If I add those impedance capacitance to my antenna, should it then resonate the same frequency? No. You'd have to add them right there at the radio, because the antenna line acts as a transformer, impedance transformer. So what you're tuning, when you tune with an antenna tuner at the radio, is you are tuning the combination of the antenna and the feed line. Okay, so there are things you can do. For example, if the feed line is exactly an electrical half-wavelength long, the impedance that appears at the end of the line there for the tuner will happen to be exactly the same impedance as the antenna. But that's a pretty special case, and it only happens at one frequency. Okay, this is from Mark Strawcutter. Mark, welcome back. In the VHF-UHF reference station, the perfect mate for the HF station 7300 would be the Icom 9700, which is a very expensive radio. I am not, at this point, going to make plans to make a VHF reference station that includes the weak signal modes. It's going to be FM and digital. I am looking at mobile systems. He makes the suggestion of an Anytone 578 Pro DMR mobile, and I will certainly look into that. I've not picked it yet. My FM only VHF rig is out of date in the sense that it's no longer sold, so I will look around for that. Speaking of the reference station, I've got a bit of a conundrum. I was going to make the PowerWorks SF30DV or SS30DV the standard power supply, but I've discovered it's not sold by either HRO or DX Engineering. And I think one of my criteria for everything that I put on there is that it's, quote, commonly available from one of those two sources. So that is the next thing to pick, is a power supply for the radio. So I might go ahead and pick the SS30DV, but you have to get it from PowerWorks. If I am wrong, and you can get that from Ham Radio Outlet or DX Engineering, please do let me know. All these, let's see, use my tuner. Oh, the copper loss. Benjamin Otto points out an important point. The copper losses in the tuner are probably negligible compared to the loop kicked back out to the antenna once the tuner is tuned. Yeah, you get that standard standing wave shooting back and forth. It's not technically standing. And that will be experiments to show what that loss will be. Yes, the new extra class question pool does contain fewer questions. However, that's because a lot of them were dumped as being out of date, but then there were quite a few that were changed and new questions added. Remember not liking that extra space station question? Yeah. Can somebody recommend a satellite tracking program that runs with Linux? I don't know. What kind of mask do you recommend for hex beam permanent? Well, I'll tell you what I've got on mine. I won't say that it's permanent, but it's a 20-foot full stick of 20 gauge. No. Let me start that over again. My mast is a full stick of Schedule 40 aluminum pipe. Not Schedule 40 plastic, Schedule 40 aluminum pipe. And that is a thick, strong son of a gun. And a friend of mine made a tilt-over stand for me for that thing. And I have had to take it down once to reassemble something that came loose in a windstorm, and that same thing has come loose again. I'll have to have it tipped over again. It takes about 3 people to tip it over because that piece of aluminum is heavy, but boy, is it sturdy. So that's what I use for my hex beam. Now, of course, there's a rotator in that too. The rotator attaches to the Schedule 40. There's a small piece of pipe that goes up into the antenna itself between the rotor and the antenna. It's about yay high. And it has to be smaller because the acceptance, the hub size on the, the hub of the antenna accepts a mast size that's a little bit smaller. So I had to do a little bit of fitting the right kind of pipe in there. By the way, it works great. I was using it just last night. I did about 20 FT8 connections with the thing pointed toward Japan. So I got several Japanese with that. Let's see. Okay. Never heard of aluminum Schedule 40. Well, I hadn't either. We have a metal recycling place in Montrose. I went down there and looked around to what I could see what I could use, get some brainstorms. And what I found was this Schedule 40 aluminum pipe. It was like $60 for the stick. It was crazy expensive, but man, that stuff is sturdy. So that's something to think about. That's what I did. And of course, it is guide at the very top. All right. Recently moved into a valley in East. Oh, this is Warren Allred, AB6YA. He's living in San Diego in the canyons. There's lots of canyons around there, believe me. Very convoluted territory. He's in a canyon, and he cannot hit any repeater with his J-pole. Nothing. And I'm not surprised in that situation. So before you go back into HF, here's what I would recommend. First of all, HF can follow those contours if you're on like 40 or 80 meters. Okay, the ground wave, so if you have a vertical antenna, the ground wave will go out and bend over that. You can even try that with 20 meters or something like that. The first thing, of course, I suggest is a 40-meter dipole strung up. Considering your elevation angles, I wouldn't bother getting it terribly high, but maybe a top 20-foot mass on either end. And then do a 40-20 antenna, again, same thing. Or you could try a vertical like an AV640 vertical. And that vertical, if you get the bottom up about 10 degrees, you'll get nice ground wave out of that thing. I think you'll find much more success on HF than you have on 2 meters. $50 ohms tuner magic. Oh, why is radio 50 ohms? Well, it wasn't until the transistorized, or the radios with transistor finals came up. It's very important for a transistor. Transistors are current-driven devices, not voltage. And so when you start playing games with trying to get a voltage output of a current-driven source, you have to pick an impedance for the thing, and 50 has been traditionally associated with radio for a gazillion years, since World War II, certainly. Tube-type radios are a lot easier to tune into just about anything. Most people never even considered a transmatch or a tuner with a tube-type radio, because the pi output of the radio, here I'll show you on the overhead. The pi output is okay. This goes to the plate. This is a coil capacitor, and no, the capacitor is band switch. And then the coils are variable, if I remember right. This is basically an antenna tuner. Let me get that right. That's not the Pi network. Dummy. It's been too long since I've worked with a real Pi network. It's got a capacitor in the middle. It's got, no. Man, am I showing my age. This is the Pi network. It looks like a Pi. This is variable, this is variable, this is band switched. So there's a switch, switches things in and out. This is called tune. This is called load. And if you look at that, that is the equivalent circuit of a modern antenna tuner. Okay? And so all radios had that already. So it was very easy to tune just about anything with those little Pi networks. Here is a comment from Martin, 2 Echo 0 Mike Hotel Lima, who is in Great Britain, and he's talking about how my general class videos helped him study for his intermediate license, and my extra videos helped them study for their full license. And thank you. I'm glad they're very helpful for you. He just wants to make a comment. Okay, this one is from Dennis Dopke. Let's see, what have we got? Super chat is open. A mast for a hex beam permanent. You could even look at tower, like Roan 25 or something. Was the tuners acting as a matching transformer and adding? Yes, it is. Yeah. Can I use my bench power supply to recharge handheld batteries? I would not recommend it. A proper charger in there has multiple stages. It rather than just put a constant voltage for a constant period of time, it will vary the voltage and current for an optimum charge pattern. Okay. Yeah, that's right. 3.1415927. It's as far as I can go. About the IC-7310 station by Dennis Dopke, W8ITC. He points out that there is a channel called Ham-Cured Smoke that is right now walking through the instruction manual for the 7300 one tiny step at a time. This arrived in the mail. It's a British publication. It's actually written by a New Zealander. The Icom Guide to the 7300. And it's more a how-to than the manual is. And I am crawling through it little by little. I don't know who sent it to me. It just showed up in an Amazon bag. There was nary a piece of paper inside that bag other than the book itself. No one indicating who sent it, no invoice, no nothing. So I want to say publicly to whoever of you sent this book to me, thank you. I've found it very valuable. In fact, one of the suggestions in there, in terms of getting the thing on FT8, I'm going to make a video on this coming week. It's just absolutely excellent. Let's see. From Windsor, Ontario, Canada. Brad Rich, I sent it. Okay, Brad, thank you. I was wondering if that might be the case. Yes. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. It's a very nice book. Let's see. Okay, so that was about the hand-cured smoke. The 78 is such a, or 7900, 7300, such a popular radio. Okay, this is from Greg, KO4JB, wants to know which is better, a J-pole or a quarter wave ground plane. Which is better, cost, single, pro, con each, thank you. If you can, go with the J-pole. It actually has a bit more gain, than the quarter wave. They both work about the same. The J-pole is not a 5/8 wave. It's actually a half-wave dipole, whereas the quarter wave, of course, is a quarter wave dipole, but it has radials on it, whereas the J-pole does not need radials. The J-pole can be made to be very, very sturdy. Of course, you can do the same. You can make a quarter wave vertical with welding rod or something like that, and put up whatever you'd like. The quarter wave takes up a little less space and is not as distinctive on the roof as a J-pole. Personally, I would go with the J-pole. Russell talks about his 7300 on 80 meters not not be heard using Ultimax 100 at 25 feet. I don't know what Ultimax 100 is. Russell, if you could just send another comment with just a little bit more on that. Barnacle Brad is here. Hello. Let's see. Okay, if you want to get a copy of this, go to the Radio Society of Great Britain, RSGP, Radio Society, RS of Great Britain, GP, and I think it'll be ARRL.UK. But you can just look up RSGB on the internet, and it'll give you the address, and you can order it from them. Some of the RSGB books are sold by the ARRL. Should you use an RF ground in your RV? Yes, certainly. Why don't you use the frame as a ground? But if you can put a little ground rod in, that's always a nice idea. You've got a buddy pole there. Buddy poles are inherently balanced antennas. So if you use the frame of the RV as a ground, it'll act as a counterpoise for that, and may give you some better results there. This is from Gus W2Z Alpha Victor. Is there a way to mount a VHF UHF antenna on something like a flagpole? Sure. I have an Edfong 5-foot antenna that I'd like to mount on some kind of pole, maybe 40 feet off the ground. Well, you'd probably want to look for a J-pole because it doesn't have any radials. You can put the J-pole inside a piece of conduit or something so it just looks white like the rest of the flagpole. Now, of course, you have to trade off how far away it is and how heavy a coax you use, because losses are always high. You get up 40 feet on top of flagpole, and the losses can be high, and you have to trade that off versus how far out you're going to get it. Note that any antenna at that height, and it's many wavelengths off the ground, you're going to get quite a bit of lensing action from the antenna, where even just a few inches difference in height can change that lensing quite a bit. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to go to the overhead here. If you have an antenna, this is a horizontal antenna, and it's on top of a tower, you're going to get lobes like this. The higher you go, the more lobing you're going to get. So if you put a VHF antenna high, you're going to get lobing, and it may be that the repeater you're trying to get hold of is in one of these shadows right here. So you may have to do a little experimentation to get that thing to work right. But yeah, you can mount a VHF antenna inside one of those fiberglass tubes that's a flagpole and get it up there pretty high. This is from John P. Melinda, KB2HUK. Hi Dave, I've heard that you have used the Yaesu FT DX3000 with SDR plane SDR Uno. I would like to know if when you turn the VFO on your radio, does the VFO and the panadaptor follow? No, I haven't installed that software. There is software that will do exactly what you're talking about. So look on the SDR Play page where it has the SDR Uno and look for how to do that. I know it can be done because I've talked with one of the guys at SDR Play who has done it. Thank you to Peter B. Wants to know what 80-meter antenna would you recommend for a small lot. Do you know anything about the micro BITX version 6 HF radio. Okay, we talked about that one. This one here, let's look up the micro BITX. It's at hfsigs.com. It's a site in India, and this sells the micro BITX. Okay, now let's take a look. This is new. General coverage HF transceiver kit, no soldering required. Oh, it comes with a cabinet, finally. I'll have to get one of these. Okay. Yeah, he loves this idea of hackability. Box content, full kit. Everything is ready. Boy, I like that display a lot better than the displays I've seen in the past. Now let's see what that question was. Oops. We don't want to put that whole thing down there. We want to come back to here. I don't know anything about the micro BITX version 6 than what we just looked at on there. It's $150, really cheap. It's a nice little radio. 80 meter antennas, you can go with like the Octopus. There's a version of the Octopus you can get that has just 2 ham sticks out of it rather than 8. 2 ham sticks, 2 80 meter ham sticks. You can get a balanced system up there for not a lot of money. And I am amazed how well those ham sticks perform. Any 80 meter year antenna you put up, any, will not cover the full band. It'll cover only part of the band. And if you go with something like those loaded whips on the Octopus, it'll cover only a few, maybe 10, 15 kilohertz at a time, and then you can take it down and retune it. The only option I've ever seen, I've got right here from Step IR, is the big IR vertical with the 80 meter coil on it. And it electronically, there's relays in there, will switch the right amount of coil in for the band that you're on. And so that way you can get coverage across the entire 80 meter band, but that's an extremely expensive antenna. And it is definitely part of my station, and it is my baseline antenna, but it will not be the reference antenna for the reference station. So there's just a couple words for 80 meters. For a small lot, they do make, if you have like a particular net you want to get on, the AV680 will cover about 25 kilohertz of 80 meters, and you can move that around manually. You've got to go out and retune the antenna to get it to the right spot. Okay. Yeah. Do you have room for an inverted L? Works well. Ultimax is 29-foot wire. Okay. Very good. The book is on Amazon, according to Mark Waldrop. Okay. I'll have to find that link and put it here, and maybe that will help. Okay, let's continue. This is from Dwayne Keating, KE5NOJ. He had passed his extra 3 years ago. Limited space, surrounded by 50 and 80 foot high pine trees. Oh, lucky you. You can put up a delta loop on one of those for just about any band you want. The AV640 will work fine, but why not try that delta loop? It'll be cheaper. You can get it up. All you need to do is get 1 point up of it very high. So you hire a neighborhood kid to climb your tree, or else you use bow and arrow and shoot a line over it so you can pull it up. But with those 50 to 80 foot high pines, you can make a magnificent delta loop, which you could then tune on multiple bands. I'm talking vertical delta loop. 1846 antennas, the mag loop. It's extremely narrow band. Well, I'd go with the AV640 if I were you, if you had the choice between those two, because it's so much broader. You don't have to worry about band switching, retuning, or anything like that. But boy, really take a look at that Delta loop. Has a 7300, okay, mostly single sideband, very good. And he is working on his CW. Great. That is great. Okay, this is from Cornell, W6HMN. I was playing around with FL Digi and was using my call sign to make sure my macros were working correctly. Forgot to turn off automated logging, and my preferred QSO got uploaded. Oh, my pretend QSO got uploaded to Logbook of the World. Discovered that once a QSO is logged, it cannot be deleted. Make sure this doesn't happen again. Cornell, don't worry about it, because when I put up my logs on Logbook of the World, there will be no match. Hence, it will be as though it never happened. No problem. Okay. Well, yeah. Yeah, there is a similar manual to this for the 7610. Brad loaned me his when he was when I was borrowing the 7610. A lot of people like the DX Commander. I don't really understand how it works. This one is from Brandon Cornelson, no call sign. He wants to build a mountaintop solar repeater system as a Kenwood TKR 750 VHF repeater, which will be used a lot throughout the day. Thinking of at least two 110 amp hour batteries, maybe using two 60-watt panels with a voltage controller. I think he means charge controller. But I read somewhere that you don't use a voltage controller. No, that is wrong. Whenever you have a solar charging system, you need a controller in there or you'll burn out your batteries. Okay, so yes, you want a controller. I would take issue with the 260-watt panels. I think you will find that that will be insufficient. You can get multiple panels to charge the batteries. Solar panels are current devices. They output, for a given amount of sunlight, they output a fixed current. And the voltage will be whatever the system voltage is. So put the controller in there and let it deal with it. Get a Max PowerPoint controller. Max PowerPoint, MPPT, something like that. That's what you're looking for. Do your numbers on that and do them in current. Okay, you've got 110 amp hour battery. Now you can only use about half of that before the battery gets down below the voltage where it's useful. So start figuring currents and stuff like that and figure out if you've got enough solar there. You may need more than you think you do. Let's see. Anyone made a circuit, use a 12AX7 or similar as a preamp in an HF or VHF spectrum? I know a guy in my club that loves vacuum tubes. 12AX7, I don't know if that's an RF tube though. Hello from Gentry County, Missouri. Problems with wire Zax? I know nothing about wire Zax. Wire Zax is a Yaesu thing. Okay, here we go. New Tech Witch Radio. First of all, Robert Minutis, please get your general license or pass your test at least before you get a radio. And buy the 7300. That's the reference station radio, is the 7300. My most recent video talks about the 7300. I live 1.5 miles away from an AM broadcast station. What kind of filter do I need to help block it out? Well, there's some brute force filters at the front end of the radio that would help keep it out. You can ask around like DX Engineering. Probably would be your best bet for asking about that. The other thing you can do is have some antennas that have very sharp nulls. and point that null in the direction of the broadcast station. Don't give up. Yes, you can. You can make that work. Okay, this is from Golf 3 Zulu Hotel India, Ian, and wonders if I've tried the new Peanut voice over internet protocol application. I have not. I assume this is something we can do over radio. There is a nascent digital voice over HF community out there. There's several different pieces of software that you can try. And they do work. They do work. This is from Chris Hernandez, KD2SPF. I'd like to thank you for the videos, Elmering. Thank you for the very kind words about my videos. Fun on 80 meters. I've never been able to reach anyone on 10 meters. I haven't talked to anybody on 10 meters in ages either. 10 meters is closed. With the low sunspot cycle, occasionally it is open either around noon, local noon, or at your local gray line sunset or sunrise. You might find something on 10 meters. Certainly go out there and call CQ. But otherwise the band is closed. Right now the bands you want to concentrate on are the lower bands. I would suggest 40 during the day and 20, and then just 40 into the evening. 80, if you can find something on there. You won't get it during the day, but in the evening and at night, 80 meters. Okay, so, yeah, I know 10 meters is attractive because the antennas are small and all that sort of thing. All right. Let's see, we're up to 146 users, quite a bit fewer than we had last week. It's a different day. This is from Robert F. Cunningham, W8RFC. First thing, thank you. Always thanking me for the Elmers. He wants a YouTube video specifically for setting up the Icom 7610 for FT8 and N3 FJP logging software. I don't have the 7610 anymore. I took that back down to Brad. However, I do have the 7300, and it is on FT8 using N3 FJP logging software. So I'll see if I can do a video about that. I'll be doing videos using the reference station. This is from Tanya Ishikawa, who is a journalist who wants some pictures of Cow Creek for free. No, I'm not going and taking pictures for free. I'll teach about ham radio for free, but you really ought to pay your photographers' newspapers. Let's see, this is from Pedro Marias, KE6MIL. Would you do a bit of analysis on this product and compare it to other approaches to the same solution, the FAVA5 and antenna analyzer? As it turns out, I have it. And it's neat. It's a very neat little thing here. And it will do a great job. What I find really interesting on this is attaching this. There's a USB port here. Attaching this to the computer, you get these beautiful graphs. And I've done some videos on this. So go search for them. If you can't find them, write me again and I'll pick one up. But this is very neat. It is a kit or semi-kit. You have to attach the two boards together and install it in the case. Pretty much the kit. And then you have to build the short open load reference things on it so that you can calibrate it. And it has that usual BNC connector, which is a royal pain. On HF it doesn't matter, you can just put an adapter in there. But yes, that's a very nice little thing, and I do have some videos on it. He says, good to see you at Quartz Fest. So Great. Pedro, thank you. And Littner Ron, wow, look at that. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That really helps the bottom line here. Because I'm thinking, again, that power supply, I've got to get a power supply for the reference station, but it needs to be one that is generally available. Okay, it's going to be 13.8 volt DC only. It won't be adjustable, and it probably will not have meters on it. I know I might mention a couple that are the same supply but have meters on them. I love dancing meters as much as the other guy. But you can go a little bit overboard if you want. From Romania. Well, thank you. Oh, that's RON. So that's Romanian 50 units. Okay. All right, let's see. This is from Julio Camara. I saw your video about the HF9V antenna and wanted to install it in my backyard, but one of the problems is space. The open area in my yard is an inverted L-shaped area with an open square about 33 by 39, which makes for about 15-foot radials and so on. Lots of radials will work, and short radials will work too. May I suggest that rather than spending the money for the HF9V, that if you look at an antenna like the AV640, which is Cushcraft, high gain, one of the two. It's MFJ, whichever it is. The HF9V antenna is now made by DX Engineering. I never really liked the HF9V. It did become the station reference antenna during the time that I put a lot of radials around it. Now, I had trouble with it at end of life. I'd had it about 30 years, and just the constant wiggling in the wind, it just was getting ragged. So I took it down and retired it, and put up the Step IR Big IR antenna, which is now my station reference antenna. Uses all those same grounds. The Big IR antenna is rather expensive, and I will use it as my reference antenna. But I would take a look at the AV640 or something like that. Tell Cushcraft I sent you. Because it doesn't require radials. And if you put it up about 10 feet, like you get one of those concrete or chain link fence top rail pieces, they're not very expensive. Get that thing up about 10 feet in the air, guy it at the 10-foot point, and you'll have a very nice little antenna. And should work quite well. Let's see. Volunteer. Okay, this is from K9AEE Kent Eichstedt. Not a question, just a tip. Found a line protector for rotators and step IR antennas. Oh, this thing right here comes from Step IR, and I have not installed it yet. This is a lightning protector, I should say over voltage protector. You attach the wires to these things here. You don't attach it between them, you just bring every wire to it. Okay, and this is for the 8 cables in the control cable, and then this attaches to the ground or the pole or wherever. This is going near ground. And I'll be putting this in when we get a little bit warmer weather. I did not finish this on the Big IR, so right now I don't have any lightning protection on the control lines. And I did not put the, there's a fiberglass plate that strengthens the bottom of the antenna. That's going in also when I get a little bit more time. Okay. So he's talking about the line protectors at KF7P. That's Kilo Foxtrot 7 Papa.com. And he makes nice enclosures for entry points and things like that. So that would be a very good thing to take a look at. Now this next one is from Jonathan Ham. What is the difference using 12-gauge speaker used in cars wiring versus 12-gauge stranded red and black wire that you might also use in your home electrical panel for connecting a ham radio to a power supply? Normally you would not use stranded wire in your home wiring, but you might use it. I guess there are circumstances. I'm not an electrician, sorry. In ham radio, we use red and black. Black being ground, or some would call it neutral. Most people call it ground. And then we use the red for the 12-volt positive, which is usually 13.8 positive, can go as high as 16 in an automobile. Okay. The difference is the marking. If you use red and black wire, you know instantly which is positive and which is not. That is not necessarily true with 12-gauge speaker wire. With the speaker wire, often one of the wires will have little plastic ribs going the length of that particular strand, and the other one won't. And that's the only way you can tell them apart. Sometimes they'll be copper colored and silver colored. You can tell them apart that way. What those are for is so that you can tell the polarity in the speaker. If you get your speaker polarity backwards, it won't sound right, but you're not going to hurt anything. If you get your electrical wiring backwards, it will hurt things. Okay, so I would say best practice in ham radio, use the red and black wiring. I don't have a piece that I can just pull off and show you right here. But best practice is to use the red and the black for DC wiring. Don is recommending the Samlex SEC 1235 for power supply. I know the electrons don't care what color the insulator is, but people do. And people can get mixed up very easily and misled by coloring. What happens when you put a dipole antenna vertical? You have a vertical antenna. It's a half-wave dipole vertical. A J-pole is a vertical half-wave. End-fed at the bottom. You can do the same with half-wave dipoles for any frequency, really. Earth in the UK, that is true. The UK, the Earth is made of earth, and in the United States, the Earth is made of ground. We are two countries separated by a common language. You get a vertical dipole. Okay, this is from John Haynes. So you've been a ham for many years now, true. I wanted to ask, how do changes in the sunspot style affect propagation in the various bands? Dramatically. If 20 meters is the best band for DX when solar output is low, does that mean 20 meters is less useful in years of higher output? No, rather the opposite. And 20 meters now is kind of only open during the day. Not an obvious question at all. If you will go to the general class, my training videos at ke0og.net/general. There's some videos in there on propagation where I've got some graphics and stuff that demonstrate how the sun affects propagation. So you can go through there. There's a section on propagation. There's also a section on the sun. And I expand on it in the extra videos. So there's some stuff up there. Propagation is a fascinating subject, absolutely. Okay, we have, this one looks a little complicated. He's having trouble understanding how a capacitor works in the circuit. I guess we'll devote that to next week. Good afternoon from snowy Denver, yes. Yeah. Now, you know what's interesting for we use red and black at 12 volts, with black being the negative and or ground or earth, and the red being the positive. However, and can be dangerous if you're not careful, in electrical household wiring, at least in the United States, black is actually the hot, and the white is the neutral. So don't get the two backwards there. You'd have a rather shocking discovery. Okay, well, we've topped out, I think, today at 150 viewers. Thank you all very much. Please keep those questions coming. And thank you for your time on this beautiful Saturday. I want to say 73 to all. Thank you so much for being Augies. Please click like, please subscribe, and please send me comments on the reference station. The only thing we've picked so far in the reference station is the Icom 7300. See, I got my Icom shirt on, which I got at Dayton this last year. And we'll go from there. 73. Catch you next time.